Professor Sadiq is a professor of physiology and is currently the Vice Chancellor of the Newgate University, Minna. Before this, he was a Vice Chancellor at Uganda Technology and Management University, as well as one of the Kampala International University, Uganda. He's the co-founder of Teaching and Research in Natural Sciences for Development in Africa, TREND, a non-governmental organization dedicated to the advancement of scientific research and education in Africa. Currently, he is the Secretary General of SONA. His research combines neurophysiological, behavioral, biochemistry, anatomical, and molecular approaches to understand the role of brain-gut axis in gastric mucosa protection and understanding the cellular mechanisms that are involved in learning and memory processes in the face of micronutrient deficiency, especially in children. Please do well to drop your question on Q&A chat. Professor Dick, you have the floor, sir, for 40 minutes. Thank you so much.
Good morning, colleagues, friends. I'm happy to be here this morning to present my talk on grants passionship. As has been introduced, I've been out of the country for quite a while. I've been out for more than 15, 16 years now, but I'm happy to be back. And also happy to be here this morning to interact with a lot of you. I checked the participants and I saw that a lot of you are people that I know from behind and people who have attended TREND, one of our TREND workshops. So I'm actually happy to see a lot of you around here today. Though we have talked about this a number of times for some of you, I've seen this lecture before, but with latest experiences that we have gotten, we thought it would be nice for us to go through this, because this is one of the biggest problems we are facing in Africa in terms of getting grants. And most of the time, not because we don't have the ideas, it's because we don't follow the rules. So a lot of us actually lose out in getting good grants. So I'm not in control of the slide. So I'll be requesting when I want the next slide to move, I'll say next, so that it moves smoothly. So Prof, next slide. So I would like to thank the president of the Society of Nigeria for inviting me to share this important topic with a larger community of Nigerian scientists. Though this talk was given in the one of his last Hebrew schools, I think that was where he saw it and he said, look, it would be nice if we share this among the much larger group, because like I said earlier, it's one of the biggest problems we are facing in Africa. So, but I want to acknowledge Professor Bert Fisher and Michael Zygmunt, because most of the materials I'm going to present today originally are drawn from their grant sponsorship manual. Some of you who know Professor Michael Zygmunt, one of the grandfathers of SONA, actually, one of the pioneers SONA members that have been pushing SONA for a long time. Hopefully he will be with us in South Africa in 2023. Next. So today we're going to discuss all the modules. The focus of our discussion will be on drafting a grant proposal for funding, mostly for research and training fellowship. And in this case, we're going to highlight about 3 points. We're going to look at the different grants and the funders, and the steps that are required for you to get adequate funding, and typical elements that are included in grant proposal. And some of the reasons, we're going to highlight some of the reasons why most of us don't actually get funded. And I think this is very, very important. Okay, next. So there are different types of grants, about 7 that are listed here. So the first one will be the fellowship grants. This kind of grants actually provide research, are provided or are given to to provide research experience to students or scientists at various stages of their career so that they can get more hands-on in the area of research. Then we have the training grants, which are mostly for pre or postdoctoral students. Now, these are basically about maybe 3 months, 4 months, 6 months, 7 months kind of grants. So maybe to go visit a lab, get particular skills, and come back to your home institution and carry out functions, your research functions. Then we have the research career development grants. Now, these grants are given to established scientists to enable them to enhance their career. So most established scientists, like those who are already gone, their postdoctoral professors and all that, these are the kind of grants they write for to be able to sustain their labs or train more students. Then the ones we are very familiar with, like conference grants, traveling grants, and other instrument grants. Now, these ones, most of the time, like for example, conference or workshop, may not follow what we are going to discuss today because specifically they request you to provide certain information about the conference that you want to host and why you want to host it and all that. Then equipment grants or publication grants. Now, these are grants that are already, I mean, these are materials that are already there. And once you're able to justify why you need that grant, then you get that, you get the money. Traveling grant, for example, if your absence is accepted in a particular conference, then you are able to get that grant. So our discussion actually will mostly be on number 1 to 3, the fellowship grants, the training grants, and the research career grant. Because these are most of the product grants that we don't get, and this is where the money actually is. And that is because there are a few mistakes that we make that enable them to get these grants. Next. There are 2 main sources of grants. Okay, you have government or non-governmental organizations. For example, NIH. NIH has a lot of money, but their funding mostly come from the US government. National Science Foundation mostly come from the US government. Fungating Foundations, which is also part of NIH now. Medical Research Council in the UK, and our 10th fund in Nigeria. So these are typical areas that you can actually apply for grant. Of course, different countries have specific funding for their citizens, but what I've listed here, especially NIH, NSF, and MRC, they can actually fund research outside their country. Then we have the non-governmental organizations like WHO, UN, Third World Academy of Science, IBRO, ISN. Now, all these organizations are able to also give specific grants to scientists to carry out specific functions. Then you have the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, you have the Alexander von Humboldt Foundation, you have Wellcome Trust, the Fund Foundation, Rockefeller Foundation. Now, these ones I've listed here, I listed them because they give grants to individuals outside the country where they are founded. Okay, like for example, a lot of us have benefited from IBRO, a lot of us have benefited from ISN, some of us have gotten grants from Alexander von Humboldt Foundation in Germany, and some of us have also gotten grants for Wellcome Trust in various capacities. So all these are source of grants that you can grant. So my presentation is basically structured towards these organizations, what they want and how they want the
Prof, we seem to have lost the audio. Or is it me?
That of the prof has lost his normal.
Okay, the network. We are sorry, we just lost the audio from Prof. I hope he will join us soon. Hello, Prof. We seem to have lost you. No, we have lost you, Prof. Hello, Prof.
Is it me?
Yes, we have lost. You are not speaking on the online again. You've lost your connection. You are not there again.
Check again.
Yes.
Hello, I'm trying to. Hello?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, let me see. I thought it was from your side, actually.
No, it's from you.
Not your side, huh?
No, yes. I mean, it's not from my side.
Members, I'm very sorry.
You see, the network is very poor.
The connection went off from my side, so I have to switch. Have to go through. So, yeah, who can qualify for a grant? Now, this is very important also. Any student or qualified scientist can qualify for a grant. But what we don't know is that even non-profit organizations like NSN can actually apply to get a grant depending on what the grant is for. Research laboratories, societies like SONA, and even for profit organizations like my university can actually apply for grants. So most of the time we pay attention to either students or scientists, but sometimes we can actually get bigger grants from our universities or from organizations. So if we are able to put people together to write particular grants in the name of a university, that grant can come to a university and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 departments can actually benefit from that. So these are the ones we are more likely to get en masse to to help most universities to get the grants that they need to help their students, especially now that visa restrictions, money is reducing. So most universities now are now putting themselves in a position where they as a university apply for grants, get the money, equip their labs, and help their staff and students also do proper research. Next slide, please. So one of the reasons from experience that we don't get funded most of the time is that most of our ideas are inadequate and they are poorly presented. And most of the time we don't understand the process and we are not persistent. Once you don't get a grant, you give up or you don't. The more you write, the more experience you get. Like I said here, good grants are not funded, excellent ones are. Because if an announcement comes out just for one spot, you can get over 1,000 applications. And these are quite good, be very quite good grants. But they only have one for one person. So good grants are not funded, excellent ones are. Yes, next slide, Prof. So I'm going to, and one thing I also need to let you know is that most grant applications, or most of the forms, or most of the calls, they are written in such a way whereby they are partly designed to cause applicants to self-select themselves out of the competition. Now, what do I mean by this?
Hello, Prof. Sorry, we lost him again.
No,
Hello,
it's okay.
Prof.
I'm listening. Yes,
Okay.
can you hear me now?
Yeah, we're hearing you now.
So like I said, yeah, so most grant applications forms are partly designed to cause the applicant, like I said, to self-select yourself out of application. Like I said, I would try to say earlier, sometimes a sentence is buried within a big paragraph. And if you don't read the application or the call very carefully, you miss it out. And that already, no matter how good your idea is, no matter how good you have written the proposal, just one process or one statement you have missed will disqualify you from that proposal. Next. So here I'm going to take you through the process, okay, of preparation, the writing, the submitting, and the kind of response you're going to get. Prof, next. Next. So in preparation, this is very important. Like I said, I was going to pay attention to the first three grants I told you about: fellowship, research grants, and career development grants. So you have to identify which grants you're applying for and your position. Are you applying for a training grant? Are you applying for a research grant? Or are you applying for a career development grant? IBRO has different calls for all these different grants. So first, before you start writing, check, are you qualified? What is your position? Are you at MSc level? Are you a PhD level? Or are you a postdoc student or a postdoc person? Or you have experience already before you apply for a particular grant? So if you don't qualify for a grant, no matter how good your idea is, you're not going to get it. Then number two, how do you identify source of funding? Sometimes we don't pay attention to this, but our colleagues have a lot of information. When we talk to each other, this is something we don't do often, but we should be able to generate, we should be able to try to talk to ourselves. They will tell you which grants are available. They will tell you when the course comes out and what you should do. Also, websites. You can check individual funding agents. Like, for example, you have to visit IBRO sites at least once every month. You know that every year, IBRO usually publish calls around August, September for grants that will be awarded in December. Then around January, they also put out calls for grants that will be awarded in April, May, or thereabout. But other smaller grants for conferences, for traveling are in between. But the major grants that are for fellowship are usually announced about twice a year. So you have to position yourself to be checking their website. ISN, the same thing. Even MBL, Marine Biology Laboratory Forum, they also have specific times they bring out their calls for specific grants. So you have to pay attention to the websites. And also, when you go for conferences, visit journal booths or society booths. There are information there. And also what I've also found very useful is that for every journal article you are reading, it means that that is your area of specialization, right? So if you are reading a particular article, it means that you are interested in that area, but somewhere below in a small italics, you will see the person or the organization that funded that research. Now, if that organization fund that research, it means that you can also benefit from them. So you go to their website and read their protocols or what they require. So the acknowledgement section in every article is a very good source of information to know where you can actually get a grant. Okay, next. Now, when you have identified your source, please read. Read. And I want to repeat, read. Read the objective of the organization. Look at their mission. Objective and mission and deadline. You can see here, I've highlighted deadline in red and underline it. It's very, very crucial. Very, very important. Now, you may have some grand objectives, some beautiful missions, some beautiful ideas, but if they don't align with the agency that's going to give you money, they are not going to give it to you, because they want to know whether you are going to highlight their objective or their mission. So if you're not going to, if your research is not going to project what they stand for, they won't give you money, no matter how good your idea is. And mostly, again, sometimes we don't pay attention to this. Some grants or some agencies requires a letter of intent. Very important. A letter of intent or a concept letter to be delivered before they allow you to submit your main proposal. So we have to learn how to write a letter of intent or a concept. It's usually about 1 page or 2 pages of what you want to do, why you want to do. So they want to review this before they can allow you to submit your grant. Again, pay attention to the required number of pages, okay? Even though I'm going to highlight some format here, different organizations may have different format on how they want their grants to be prepared, also to be submitted. So pay attention to the requirements of the organization. What holds for IBRO may not hold for ISN. What holds for ISN may not hold for NIH, okay? So when you get your agency, please pay attention to these 4 points. Next. Sometimes you need to speak to the agency program officer. Like most times, I think in the last 4 or 5, in the last 3 SONA conferences, the NIH director for African services usually comes to SONA to talk to some of us, to talk to people that we have these grants available. This is what you need to do to get these grants. So, and most of the grants, granting organizations, usually they have the details of the officer in charge of that program. So it's always good to talk to them. They will give you insight on what they are required or what they require and what they need people to do, okay? You can also speak to colleagues. Like for example, I know that in Nigeria, we have a lot of Alexander von Humboldt fellows. Yeah, up to ABU, Ibadan, almost every university now have one. So if you are going to apply to von Humboldt fellowship, please, there's no harm, there's no harm if you go to a colleague and say you are a fellow. Please, how did you go about this? What can I do? How do I go about? I want to apply. When do I apply? How do I apply? How did you get yours? Okay. And if, like for example, if you go to Wellcome Trust website, you will see the projects they have funded before. And sometimes they also tell you how they will review your paper or your proposal, okay? So look at their review process, how they review technical review or content review. Technical review means, have you followed the guidelines? Have you followed the protocol they have given you? Now, That's the first one. If you don't pass that, sorry, no matter how good your idea is, it's not going to go forward. So if you pass that, you now look at your content, which I'm going to talk about later. Is the content in line with what they want? Okay. So these are very key points that you need to know before you actually start writing. Next, Prof. So again, go back a little bit. Yeah. Again, this is also very important. Strength of your preliminary work or pilot data. They want to know whether you have done this before or you have an idea of the kind of work you want to do. Because this fellowship, this research grants runs into thousands of dollars sometimes or a number of years. So they want to know whether you have experience in that area. So it would be nice to also, if you have done some pilot work or your supervisor has done some studies in that area, which you can highlight. And who is going to write your confidential letters of reference? Again, we don't pay attention to this. We just think just because Sadiq Yusuf is a prof, he will give you a letter. Now, am I the appropriate person who can give you a letter for a particular grant? You can say Professor Victor Lamide can say Professor of Physiology. If this is a member of ARC, if he gives me a letter, ARC is going to accept my proposal. No. If it's in the area where he's not an expert in, sorry. So you have to work out first who is going to give you a confidential letter of reference. Somebody who can speak for you and somebody who has knowledge in that field, or somebody who has experience in research, and somebody who also carry weight in the research, in the discipline that you are in. And again, your head of department is very important. And if you have a research office, these are also very, because they are sometimes some grants organizations require that you get a comment from them. Next. So, like I mentioned earlier, it's always good to develop a concept, even if it's not required. It's good for you yourself to develop a one page, so have an overview of what you want to do. There, here I said a concept that fits. That means a concept that fills gap in knowledge, that is important to the field or to the agency that is going to give you money, and most importantly to you yourself, because if what you want to do is not important to you, then you won't do a good job. So it's important that whatever concept you are going to develop must fill a gap in knowledge, and it's important. And it also tests an hypothesis and has a long-term gain. Okay, so it might be one page or two, maximum of 2 pages for you to go on. Go on, Prof. It's okay. So now, what are the steps you need to take? Next. Okay, Prof. Okay. So the next step you take is, because most of these grants I'm talking about, the fellowship, research grants, sometimes will require your co-investigators or co-PIs. You need to collaborate, or you may have a supervisor. It's better to identify these people much early. If you are going to get an NIH grant, it's more likely that the PI or the co-PI will be in the US. Your collaborators may also be in the US. Your advisor may be in Nigeria, but it's better and more advisable to get your co-PI or your co-investigators much earlier and identify them and discuss with them about your grant before you start writing. 2, among you, your co-PI or your co-investigator, your collaborators, you have to identify the role each of them is going to play in the research you're about to do. Okay. What are the administrative requirements? But there are some instances where the grants require that your university must sign off. Sometimes not just your university, they may even require NUC to sign off or Ministry of Education to sign off before they accept your application. So you need to look at this critically. And then core facilities, do you have them? If you don't have them, where are they? Would it require you for you to travel from Nigeria to Ghana or to Uganda or to the UK to do the research? if you can't travel, how are you going to get those core facilities? So you have to indicate that the facilities that you want to do, you have them. And your research office, your either PG school or your research office, what are the university requirements? For example, I lost a very big grant in Uganda recently because I didn't know that my university required that for every grant you get, they will take 30%. I had assumed that it just required 10 to 15% overhead, but in their law, it's 30%. So when I went to PG school to get their sign off on it, my proposal, my budget says 15% administrative fees. They said, no, sorry, it's 30. And that was it. I couldn't proceed from there. So it's better you work all this out and before you start writing. Okay, next, sir. Yes, again, human subjects, animals you are going to use. There are ethical issues, you need to sort it out. Does your university has an ethical committee? If they don't have, where are you going to get it from? Does Ministry of Science and Tech need to sign off on it? Are you going to export the animals? Are you going to import the animals? What are the regulatory mechanisms that are in place? Please also work this out before you start applying, okay? Because it may cause you problems in the end. So when you have sorted all this out, then you start writing. There are common areas that you write on. Like I said here, you write, you review, you edit. Review, edit. Review, you can write, review, and edit more than 1,000 times. This is very, very important, my friends, because there are times you rush through a grant and you miss out in an important area, an error. What that means is that you're not careful to items. So they would like, if I give money to this guy who cannot even, doesn't know that he has made a grammatical error in this area here and there, then he won't pay careful attention to details. So we're not going to give you that money. So please, when you finish, first write the global thing, then start reviewing, start eliminating and all that, okay? Then when drafting your proposal, again, this is very, very important. Make sure the guidelines are by your side. If you have to print them out, print them out. When you write page 1, page 2, page 3, check what are they asking for. But if you don't do that, you will miss out on important information that would make them not to accept your proposal. Okay, next. So I want to now go through quickly the common sections. You may think you know these things, but these are very important. Title. It should conform to the agency's guidelines for titles. Sometimes they have specific number of words. Some require words and character. Okay, so it's important that you get this. And then some require abstract. Not all grant agencies require abstract, but if they require an abstract, make it very simple, less than 200 words. Make sure that it's accurate. Then one other area where we miss out a lot is in the budgeting, okay? Most grants organizations give you a form, and please don't follow your own pattern. If they give you a budget form, follow it. Don't use your own terms, just follow what they have given you. If they have not given to you, then you can develop yours in the format that I'm going to share with you in a short while. Make your request reasonable. Don't ask for too much. Okay, here is an example of a typical budget of a grant. Salaries, fees, benefits, supplies, equipment, direct costs and indirect costs. Again, direct costs and indirect costs is also very important in the sense that direct costs is the amount that you actually spend to do your research. Indirect costs are the overheads. So if your salaries, your fringe benefits are more than your direct costs, nobody's going to give you that money. If your indirect cost is about 40% of your budget, nobody's going to give you that money. So you have to pay attention when you distribute the funding. Don't give too much money to salaries or fringe benefits. don't give too much money to indirect costs. Make sure that about 50% or thereabout, or 45% of thereabout of your budget is going to go directly into the research. Next. I'll give you examples of how you justify your budget. So you have personnel, like for example, now I've mentioned Ben Asher. He has 20% effort. He's going to be responsible for evaluation. And what is he going to do? What is his role in the project? He will develop evaluation instruments, administer surveys, and compile and analyze data. So if you have 20 people in your research proposal, you have to make this for everyone. So you have to show that this is what everybody is going to do, and this is how they are going to do them. Because you are going to attach their CV that shows their specific capacities. Next. Then you have travel. Now, these are the other benefits I'm talking about. If you are going to travel, what is it going to cost? Are you traveling by air or by land? Okay. Are you going to spend some time in there? If you are going to, how much is per night? And so you have to justify all this. Because if in the middle of your research, you want to go for a conference in another country, you have to put in your research grant, but then you have to justify the money you're asking for that. Okay. Next. Again, subjects, animal subjects. If you're going to use humans or animals or Drosophila or any other smaller animals, again, you have to justify why you're using the animal, how much is going to cost, how are you going to maintain the animals in the lab. If you are using rat, like most of us do in Nigeria and Africa actually, they want to, where are you going to keep them? You now know human animal rights. And so you have to justify their upkeep, where you're going to keep them. Are they going to be treated humanely? And how much are you going to spend to do that? Okay, so this, again, another important aspect that I thought you should know when you're making your budget. Next. Again, you have got your personnel, but each personnel whom you have said is going to do A, B, C, D, you have to attach a curriculum vitae of that person that indicates their skills and all that. Either your principal investigator, your co-investigator, or collaborators. What are their key expertise that they have? Okay, next. You have to highlight their accomplishments, training experience, grant support, publications. Now, I want to make a point here. I have seen a lot of CVs that are coming from Nigeria. Yes, I understand that your universities, various universities have CV formats that are required for promotion. That's your university format. You cannot send a CV to a grant organization and you are listing your local government, your marital status, your number of children, and all that. That's your university format. Please, when you are sending your CV, make sure you format it along the agency's requirements. Your university CV is not the same as another agency's requirement. I've seen this a lot, the number of applications that we receive, even in trend. Okay, so make sure that the articles are arranged appropriately. Okay, in terms of articles, chapters, or abstracts, separate them. Don't make one long line. Nobody wants to know whether you have 100 publications, but which of them are review articles, which of them are peer-reviewed articles, which of them are actually review, which of them are actually chapters in a book, which of them are actually abstract. So you can demarcate them into bibliographies A, B, C, E. A, peer-reviewed articles. B, chapters in a book. C, abstracts in conferences. And then you place them in a chronological order, title, volume, and page numbers. Okay, next. Now, again, this is where where most of our problem actually lies in the research plan. Okay, when you're going to write a research plan, it has about 4 components: the aims and objectives, the background, the design and methods, and your pilot data if you have some. You can see here, I've just given you approximate values, 5%, 15%, 60%, 20%. Now, if you make your proposal 40% of it to be background, nobody has time for that. You don't have enough time for your research methods, which is where you are going to spend a lot of your money. The money they are going to give to you is for item C, okay? And item C is linked to item A, for example, specific aim and objectives. So, and then your item D, your preliminary data, will show whether you have the expertise to do what you want to do if you are the co-PI. So these are the common sections in research plan, but I'm going to expand on them in a short while. Next. So like I said, aim and objective, it should be short overview of what you aim to accomplish, state objectives clearly. Now, these objectives must be action smart. You can't say, I'm going to describe. You can't say, I'm going to demonstrate, for example. Okay? Use terms that say what you are going to do, what you want to get. Okay? They must be smart and they must be measurable. Okay, so you are going to match your objectives in line with the funding agency. Okay, like for example, IBRO will tell you, how does this portray IBRO in your continent, for example? If I give you money to do this research, how is IBRO presence going to be felt? How does it match IBRO's mission of advancing neuroscience in everywhere in the world? If it doesn't fit that objective, sorry, they won't give you that money. Okay, next. In the background, it's all about why the work is important. Okay, just a brief literature review. You should include your previous work or the work of your co-PI or your co-investigators, okay, to show that these are the areas you'll be working on and you want to advance. So they will know that you have a background already and it will be easy to do the work that you say you're going to do. So just maybe one page or half a paragraph for that. Next. Then the research methods, the experiments you will conduct. Now, again, this is where I also saw discrepancies when you were writing grants. Your research, your experiments must match your objectives or your aims. They have to, because it's the research experiment that you will do that will answer your objective questions, right? So the title of this experiment 1 must match one of your objectives. Experiment 2 match one of your objectives. Experiment 3 match one of your objectives. And in each experiment, state the hypothesis and state the rationale. Why you want to do that experiment? Why do you want to do it? Why is it important that you must do that experiment to answer your research question, which is your objective? What is the hypothesis backing what you want to do? Okay, next. What is now the protocol you are going to follow? This is what I want to do. This is where your details are. This is what tells the funder that you have the expertise to do what you say you want to do. So this is a very, very important aspect. And also, how are you going to treat your animals? What analytical methods are you going to use? If you notice of late, Trend has been doing a lot of workshops on how to analyze data. A lot of it in the last 2 or so years. Why? Because we know that a lot of us have deficiencies in this area. So we are using, like now they say there's one going on in South Africa, Python. So we want to see if we can get a lot of skills in this area that can improve our grant sources when we write our applications. Okay, and then you can add a comment what you expect to find. If we do this experiment, this is what we hope to find. And if we don't get it, this is how we are going to solve the problem that will come with it. Okay, that's for each experiment you are going to do. Next. Then you give timeline. If it's a 2-year grant, it's a 1-year grant. So your experiment 1, how long will it take you? Will it be in the first year or in second year? With experiment 2, is it going to last 2 years or is it? So this has to fit into the time that the grant will cover. Most fellowships go for 1 year, for example. Like I said, most training grants go for like half a year or 3 months or 4 months. And most research grants for established scientists can actually go for about 2-3 years. University grants that is given to university can go up to 5 or even 10 years. So when you're writing these grants, check out the time frame so that your objectives and your experiments fit in within that period. You usually look for. Sometimes they don't ask for this, but you have to add it. So they keep quiet, deliberately keep quiet about this to see whether you add this. So it would be nice for you to add, even if you don't ask for it, please, it's good to ask to put your timeline on what you want to do, where you want to get your grant. Next. Again, if you're going to use animals, you're going to use humans, okay? It's very important. How are you going to treat them? What are the guidelines? What are the ethical guidelines? Are they university ethical guidelines? Is it the country and all that? So you have to check what the agency wants. Sometimes they want a government organization to say that you have the expertise to do what you want to do. That it's a human, or the countries allow you to use human subjects. The countries allow you to use animals. Sometimes they just want the university ethical committee to say yes. So check what the agency wants. Different agencies want different certifications from different establishments, okay? And be clear about the appropriateness of your species or number of subjects you are going to use and the treatment you are going to melt out and the special conditions under which you are going to do your experiments, okay? So if, for example, an experiment you can do with flies and you say you are going to use rats and your country does not allow you to use rats, you're not going to get that grant, for example. Instead of using, let's say, 5 animals and you say you are going to use 2, why do you justify 2? How do you justify 2 when you can use 5? Do you have the power of analysis to come to conclusion with 2 subjects? So these are things, silent points. That's why I said earlier, some grants are designed to eliminate you, to actually eliminate yourself. So sometimes they don't talk about this. They are silent about it. So depending on the species you are going to use, please pay attention to this, okay? Next. Letters of recommendation or agreement. This is also very key. Recently, I don't know if Moses Ekong is online. We had to apply recently for a grant. 3 a.m. we're working. 3 a.m. we're working because one of the persons whom we thought was going to give us a letter was nowhere to be found. And we could not submit without that letter. Eventually, we got her and then she wrote to the organization that she's rejecting it. I mentioned about letters of recommendation much earlier. This is key. Make sure the person who is going to give you a letter is available and you have all agreed on it. And if it's always good to have a backup, just in case you don't have that letter, somebody else can step in. Okay, some organizations pay attention to this very well. So after you finish writing, like I said, put it aside, come a few days after and read it. You will see errors. That's why I told you earlier, write, edit, review, edit, review, edit, review. It's a continuous process until you are finally sure. Then you conduct your own peer review possible. Next. Again, this is very important. It's a good practice to have someone with experience and whom you trust to review your proposal before it's submitted. It's always good to do this. That's why it's good to have mentors when you are writing. I don't say because I'm a professor, I'm good at this, no. Whenever I write a grant, I usually send it to a colleague to look at again. And most of the time it comes back with suggestions, which I had missed completely. So don't keep it to yourself. Though again, I've said here, whom you trust, okay? Sometimes you give your proposal somewhere and you find it somewhere else. So it's good to have mentors. And that's why NSN, I'm happy to know that you've started this mentoring process, whereby the younger scientists can actually approach the senior guys to assist them to read their proposals. It's a very good trend. And I think we'll continue about it. Next. So submitting your application, again, I've highlighted this in red. Know the deadline. Know the deadline. Don't wait. Prepare for problems. Like yesterday, my computer crashed yesterday. I'm just using my iPad right now. I'm lucky I have an iPad, but how many of us have multiple computers? When you least expected, your computer will crash. Some of us who are using satellite internet, weather plays a big role on that. When you want network is not going to be there. For example, I prepared today. I have Airtel, I have MTN. I was using MTN at the beginning, quickly went off. Just imagine if I didn't have Airtel as a backup. That means this presentation would have been no, I will not be able to do what I'm doing right now. So always prepare for the inevitables. Give yourself extra time, okay? Don't wait the last day to submit. Make sure you are ready in at least 3 days before so that you don't have problems when you have that room to maneuver, okay? So the next slide shows a typical timeline for NIH preparation. You can see for a grant you are going to apply today, today is the deadline. You should have started 9 months ago, last year. That's why I said that all these agencies have times when they publish their grants. So find out and prepare early. From here, you can see the planning phase take about 3 months. The writing phase took 4 months, and getting feedback from your peer reviewers, your supervisors takes another 1 month. Then you have 1 month now to start process. So it takes a while. If you are going to apply for MBL, you have a whole year to prepare. MBL is Marine Biology Laboratory. I was lucky. I and James Olopade were lucky to get in, but our process took a while, even to write a proposal. It took us almost 1.5 years to do that, to get in. So take your time. If you are going to apply next year, start now. So responding, when you submit, they will respond to you. Now, these are the things they use to review your proposal: the significance of the study and the originality of the proposal. Do you have enough methods that will answer your objectives? Are you qualified? Is your PI qualified? Is your co-investigation qualified? Do you have the resources that you are going to use to do the research? Do you have the time and budget to do what you want to do? Is it relevant to the mission of the agency that's giving you money? So these are some of the criteria they use to evaluate your proposal. Okay, so pay attention to this. Next. Now, this is one of the major reasons why proposals don't get funded. Okay, lack of new or original ideas. There's no point doing what people have already done. It doesn't make sense. Okay. Absence of an acceptable scientific rationale. Why are you doing what you are doing? Lack of experience in the methodologies, questionable reasoning in experimental approach, unfocused research plan. Okay, you are neither here or there. Lack of details, the method you are going to use to do your research. Don't still say, I'm going to use biotechnological. No, what method, or don't say you are going to use SPSM to use this. No, what exactly are you going to do is important. Lack of knowledge. That now, this is what I mentioned, that 50% of your plan. So if you don't have knowledge about what has been done before, then it will be difficult for people to give you money. Okay, and most of us are guilty of number 8. We want to achieve everything at once. So you have these huge ideas that you know that you cannot do. You want to do physiology. You want to do pharmacological testing. You want to do cognosy. You want to, who are you now? How is that going to be possible? Then for fellowships, which most of us apply for students, weakness of candidates. That means 1, no publication. You publish in low impact journals. your research is on focus, you don't have appropriate letter of recommendation, and you don't have adequate training in the area you want to work on. So NSN, this is one area we need to help our young candidates or our young colleagues. Okay, then poor mentorship. Your mentor, your supervisor, or your PI, or your co-PI, your co-investigator, they don't have enough research experience. They have poor funding record, and they don't have training experience. Or your university is not giving you anything at all. You say you don't have anything in your university. You don't even have a lab. You don't have one single equipment that you can use in your university. That also is a negative in most of our proposals. Now, for some of us who are coming into the research field new, we usually have these problems. Our proposal is what we think. We don't bother to look at, let's say, for example, IBRO's objectives. So I want to do this, so this is what I want to do. Like I mentioned earlier, does it meet IBRO's objective? Does it meet ISN? Does it meet Bill & Gates Foundation objectives? Okay. You do not follow these instructions. Budget, we don't look at how much budget that is available. Okay. We are over ambitious. We are just beating around the bush, see what sticks. We do have our hypothesis, and we don't have preliminary data. These are some of the things that count against us. Focus, you don't have enough statistics, and your methods are beyond your expertise. Okay. Some of the things that we have seen in some of the applications that we have received. So, colleagues, to be honest, now things are hard, but there's still money, for example. But getting it takes a good idea. You have to match your idea with the agency. You have to be good in the art of writing, okay? And you have to be persistent. Yes, it is hard work, but when you get the money, then you will know that your hard work has paid off, okay? So I guess this is some of the things I want to highlight with you. And I want to say, once again, thank to NSN for giving me this chance to present this talk today. Though I was a little bit fast, but if you have any questions, I'll be ready to answer them. Thank you.
Wow. Oh, thank you so much, Professor Sadiq.
Yes.
This is quite expository and very interesting talk. Thank you so much. So we can take the questions now. Professor Yowele, please, I think you can check the Q&A session because I'm not the co-host.
Oh, no, okay. But you can also check the chat.
No, there's none in the chat. I told them to put it on Q&A.
There is none also in the Q&A. There's no Q&A.
Okay,
actually.
So no question. So everybody understood everything. That's quite an interesting talk. I was almost engulfed that I didn't know when it exceeded 40 minutes. So no question. Everybody appreciated the talk.
Well, maybe if I can just say something that the lecture is really stimulating.
Yeah, it
and
is.
I think Prof did mention something about our CV. I was telling some of my students that we need to reorientate ourselves about CV, the curriculum vitae. People just dump what the university require, and the university CV is not elegant enough for some of these grants that we are writing. So I think our young ones should probably just learn from there. I'm speaking from experience as a member of reviewing body for grants, many grants. I review for IASP, I review for IBRO and other things, and I see some of these things also. So I think our young people should, I think there's something in, okay. So maybe over time, people need to learn how to write CV. I know people that are not in academic, they know how to package themselves. Those who are in general, maybe financial sector and what have we. I think that's something we need to look at.
Okay. Thank you. I can see a hand up. Samuel.
Okay, let's.
Yes,
okay,
good morning.
They just want to ask direct question, not on key. Okay, Samuel.
Okay, good morning. Thank you, Prof, for the presentation, and thank you to the organizer. I just want to ask, the speaker said, he said something about publication. things that affect getting a grant. Does it mean that people that don't have, maybe let's say people like us that don't have much publication, does it mean that we cannot apply for grants? Or is it that anytime they are putting up the adverts, there will be specification about the amount of publication you should have before applying? Thank you.
Yes, thank you for that question. That's why I say when you are, some of these things, the agencies are silent on it, very silent. They won't say anything about it. So you have to look at what you are applying for. If it requires a technique and you don't have past experience or you don't have proud data, then make sure you have a co-investigator or a co-PI that has what you lack. But if you don't have any of those, then apply for a training grant so that you can go and acquire certain skills because you are targeting a particular grant. Like, for example, I didn't have experience in molecular biology techniques. So I had to take a 2 weeks or 3 weeks course somewhere else because I was targeting a particular grant in a year's time. So I went for a molecular biology techniques workshop so that I can acquire those skills before I can apply for that grant. But I was able to get a grant to go for that training course because there's money for me to go, learn that skill, put it on my CV, then apply for the grant that I want to apply for. So these are very important. So if you are going to apply for a grant that will allow, that you say you're going to use molecular techniques and you've not done published work in that area, and you don't show evidence that you have the skills, no one is going to give you money. This is one of the areas that I really want to stress. So, but they will not tell you, they won't tell you. That's why I said at the beginning that some grants are designed for you to self-select yourself out of it. Okay, so if you are going to do this, first go for certain trainings or make an effort. And this is something that, again, we don't do often.
Thank you, Prof. I think we have some other questions on the chat box.
Yes.
There are some folks raising up hand before we take the chat. Lawal, just be straight to you. Lawal.
Okay.
Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity.
Be snappy.
Yeah, so I wanted to seek clarification on the budget. There was a table about the budget preparation, and so you mentioned some percentages about indirect costs and all of that. So I wanted you to clarify that for me. Thank you.
Please, Mutia, who is that? Mutia.
Okay, so in terms of budgeting, again, like I said, they're not going to tell you this. If you are going to do a research whereby 50% of the money you're asking for is going to go for salaries, and you devote, let's say, 20 to 30% of the money for the research itself, they won't give you that money because they believe that you're not going to spend enough money to do the research, but you're just going to spend money to travel around the world or to buy big cars and all that. So when you're doing your budget, look for direct costs. That is the money that you are going to spend to do your research. That should be at least 45 to 50% of the grant itself, what you are going to spend the money on. Okay, so then if your university, most of the time when your university, you want to be greedy and say they want to take 30% of overhead, you have to justify how much is the power. For example, there's no power in Nigeria, so I'm going to buy a generator to generate, or I'm going to buy solar panels to do this. Now, if you buy solar panel and you don't have money to do your research, because there's a limit of what they can give you. If they find out that your 30%, 40% is going to go to overhead, what are you going to use to do the research? If you devote 10% to salaries, or travel, how are you going to disseminate the information that you have found? So that's why you have to be very careful when you're making your budget. They are not going to tell you this. They won't tell you. They just say submit a budget. So you have to now use your grant personship skills to know how to distribute that money. But just make sure that 20%, 25% go for salary, 45% go for direct costs, about 10, 15% go for indirect costs, and then about 10% go for fringe benefits. That way you increase your chance of being funded. Because most of the time they will tell you what they are going to give you, but they will not tell you how you will spend it. But it's now left for you to now show them how you are going to spend it, for them to have confidence in you to give you that money. Is that clear?
Yes, I think we can move to the next person.
Yes,
Okay.
thank you.
Okay. Who is the next here?
Dr. Dedamola.
We have so many hands up now, and it's becoming very interesting. And so, are we wrapping up by 11:30 or in the next 10 minutes so that we know? The next 10 minutes?
The next 10 minutes, please.
Okay, the next person, the person that asked question now, is this Samuel? Okay,
Let
Samuel,
Dr. Dedamola ask that question.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you so much. I was wondering when Prof mentioned that there are some grant that requires you to write an abstract. So I was thinking what an abstract for a proposal would look like, because what I used to think is that abstract has to do with already done work or studies like that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Abstract is not about, abstract is summary of what, it's like a executive summary of what the main meat is, isn't it? It's not that what it has been done. So in abstract, for example, the overall goal of the project, the overall method or technique you are going to use, and what you hope to get out of that research. That should be like approximately 150 words or 100 words. So, but just at a glance, the guys know that this person wants to do this. This is how he or she wants to do it, and this is what is going to come out of it. So that's an abstract. Okay. More or less like an example summary, yes.
Okay, thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Okay, thank you. Mustafa. Mustafa. Mustafa, are you aboard?
Yes,
okay,
I am.
Okay, just make it very snappy. Yeah,
thank you. Thank you, Prof. Thank you. Please, I would like to know, Prof, sir, from your own experience, what has been the greatest challenge that you have faced when it comes to writing a grant and winning one, sir?
Very interesting question. One is my first grant that I wrote, I had so many big ideas. Of course, I didn't get it. I wanted to do extraction, I wanted to do fractionation, I wanted to do physiology, I wanted to do histopathology, I wanted to do microbiology. Of course, I didn't get it. It's just thrown out of it. The second one, like I said, I didn't have the expertise of what I wanted to do. I spoke a lot of English, and I didn't know why I didn't get it. I thought the idea was quite good. And then when I came from MBL, we wanted to do some work on using crabs and all that. I wasn't going to them to do it. Then again, they have this over ambitious. I want to do electrophysiology. I want to do molecular biology. I want to do so many things. And then, of course, the other, apart from grant expectation of wanting to do everything that is there possible, publication also was a problem. The journals that I published in, okay? So actually, one of the major reasons why I joined hand with Lucia and Tom to stand trained, actually, because I thought that would be the best way to train other scientists that are coming up so that they don't make the same mistake that we made. So that you can do some work and publish in good journals as it is. Like, for example, when I became VC, I put an advert for people to apply for jobs here. Of course, I received a number of applications, and you have, on the average, everybody that has a PhD that applied for this job has over 45 papers. Okay, but when you check the citation index and Google Scholar, it's quite dismal. I mean, there's no, you have publish an article that nobody has ever read. There is no single download, or nobody has actually referenced to that article. So it's actually, that's a 0 point. Nobody's going to give you marks for that. Okay. And so we have to be careful of the journals we publish in. Don't forget, right now, there's a lot of pediatric journals all over the place, most of the time. So when you publish in such journals, nobody's going to read your article. That's why I tell my friends and my students, if you send an article and the next response is pay $150 or pay $200, don't publish in that journal. It's pediatric. Nobody's going to read it. So when you publish such journals, nobody's going to give you money, to be honest. So make sure you do, no matter how small it is, make sure you do good work, publish in a journal, even if it's just one publication that people will actually look at, that is respectable. If you can get your paper into such journals, then you are sure that somebody can actually trust you enough to give you money. Thanks.
Okay, thank you so much, Prof.
Yeah.
Olu Muyiwa, very snappy. I think they will be the last one. Then we'll take the ones on the chat and we'll wrap up. Are you there, Olu Muyiwa? Okay. Since he's not responding, he or she, Prof, there's one on the chat from said the lecture is really stimulating, but I would suggest that a breakdown of this be done and delivered in series. I think maybe it's for the ESCOs and all that. Okay, the other one, the other question is coming.
Yeah, there's one that says if funding agency requests that you send them one page research grant proposal, how do you combine all these you have mentioned into a page? Okay. My friend, you have to do it. You have to. Like when we were applying for MBL, the request for one page, I started off with 10 pages.
Wow.
Okay. Yes. Then gradually walk it down to one page. So find a sentence, instead of giving objectives, one sentence goal of an overall goal of what you want to do and how that is going to benefit you and how you can use that information when you get back home, or how is it going to assist others to benefit. So find ways to combine sentences, find ways to be more global, more or less like I mentioned about abstract. Try to write an abstract, executive summary of what your global idea is and compress it into one page. This is very, very important to funding agencies. They want to know whether you pay attention to details. That's why they ask for that concept note. If you can do it and it passes, then you are sure that you are going to get money. It takes time, it takes practice. It's not just one day thing. That's why I gave you a timeline of about 9 months to prepare for this. Yeah.
Okay, I think the last one, then we'll close. Would it be possible to get a grant and thereafter encounter a limitation that will significantly affect the outcome? What do you do in this regard? This is the last one. We're not going to take any.
Sorry, I didn't get that.
So will it be possible to get a grant and thereafter encounter a limitation that will significantly affect the outcome? What do you do in this regard?
Definitely. When I was presenting, I said when you are writing your proposal in the research plan, experiment 1, I gave you 4 areas and then I put comments. In that comment, you should be able to envisage what you are likely going to encounter. Because for every experiment that you are going to do, there should be some form of limitation. This will not go well, definitely, but you should be able to predict what's going to come and said, I may likely encounter this problem. When this happens, this is what I plan to do. So the agencies know that ahead of time that there will likely go to be issues with your research plan, and they themselves will prepare for it, so that when you actually ask for extra money, for example, or you ask for extra time, they know ahead of time that you are going to have a problem. But if you think that everything is going to be a smooth sail in your experiments, then you are a dreamer. They won't give you money. That is why, and again, they're not going to measure those things in the announcement they are going to give to you. So when you're writing your experiments, what is the aim? How are you going to do it? What is the rationale? What is the hypothesis? And what are the likely problems you are going to encounter? So you state them. So they also know, so when they are giving you money, they know that you are going to run into problems, but you have an idea of how you are going to solve them when the time comes.
Okay, thanks so much, Prof. We've come to the end. Maybe the subsequent question will be sorted out later. I'll hand over to the president for the closing remark.
Thank you so much, our beloved SONA Secretary General and the Vice Chancellor. This is a Vice Chancellor's speech, and it's so encompassing. We have learned from your knowledge, and we can see even from the short time you have become Vice Chancellor, you have also given us some insight into what makes a good applicant and what you have encountered. And I think we stand to continue to benefit from this, your wealth of knowledge. For our members, the discussion will continue on the platform, and we should know that we will try to upload this video on our YouTube platform. We want to thank our senior members. I think I saw Professor Lokpade there, Professor Danjuma, and all the members of the executives. We really appreciate your coming. It has been a stimulating lecture. There was a suggestion on organizing a webinar on different type of CV. Please, if we miss anything, you can always put them on the on our WhatsApp platform so that we can have a follow-up. And the beautiful thing about this is that the Vice Chancellor who has spoken to us today is a member of the NSN, is on the platform, so he can listen to us. He can also reply to some of the comments that we have had. But before I just finish that, I think somebody was talking about payment. The Vice Chancellor was telling us that predatory journals will always ask you for money, but not for review. The key thing when you submit your journal article is that you should expect a proper review, not money. But when you see a journal, you just submit, and the next thing they are saying, pay 100, pay 150, that means they are keen about your money. They are not keen about the quality of what you are submitting. So we should target a proper review. And when you have a very critical review, you should be happy because it's going to make your work very good. So I want to thank my Vice Chancellor and the VP for this wonderful outing. Thank you very much.
Can we take a screenshot? Professor Yewale, stop sharing. Can we take a screenshot? I almost forgot. A screenshot.
Okay, we should stop. Okay.
Stop sharing. Please, let's take a screenshot. So you can show your face if you are not in the kitchen.
Okay, so are you taking the screenshots?
Yeah, we're taking it. Just hold on.
Okay.
Having some technical issues. This thing is hanging. Sorry. My system is hanging.
Hello, Professor Bamidele. It's nice seeing your face, sir.
Thank you. Who is that, please?
I'm Samuel. I saw you when I came for PG qualifying exams in England some weeks ago.
Oh, thank you.